it's not catalyzed, eh?
Right.
So I just watched The Hobbit a while back, classic adventure story. And of course, it's Bilbo to begin with. It's Bilbo. He's this little hobbit, right? Sort of like Abraham. He's living his comfortable life. And the wizard comes along and says, it's time for you to develop your shadow side, because, of course, he becomes a thief, and to go on your adventure. And he agrees to do that. And it's a weighty adventure. He has to contend with the ring of power. Right? That's the ultimate in temptations. That's the temptation that Christ is offered by Satan in the desert. The temptation of power. And that's the temptation that Bilbo has to contend with. Well, he has this adventure. Well, what's the adventure? It's responsibility. He has to carry that ring. And it is one of the rings that unites everything, power. It's just the malevolent ring that unites everything. And so I've been suggesting to young men in particular, it's like, you want to get your life together? Take the path of maximal responsibility. Not because you should, even though you should. That's not why. It's because that's the pathway of maximal adventure. So you say, well, what's the meaning of life? It's like, it's the meaning that reveals itself when you take the pathway of maximal responsibility. That's exactly the message of the crucifixion. That's precisely the message. Pathway of maximal responsibility. And that's a terrifying thing. There's no difference between that and the dragon and treasure stories that are, unbelievably archaic. The greatest possible treasure is to be found where the danger is most intense.
Right.
Yeah. Always.
Right. The dragon guards the gold.
Always.
Right.
Well, and so one thing to know is that if there's a dragon, there's a treasure somewhere. Really?
Right.
Really?
Right.
My family and I have really learned this in the last 6 years, because we were subject to continued and assaults in the public sphere that were designed to be deadly. And
what do you mean by that? Designed to be deadly?
Oh, interviews with journalists in particular, snake journalists whose every single utterance is designed to entrap the person being interviewed into saying something that will devastate their reputation personally to enhance the status of the interviewer.
Like the Kathy Newman conversation.
Well, Kathy at least had a bit of a sense of humor. But Helen,
the intent.
Oh, yeah, the intent. That's the serpent, man.
Yeah.
That's the intent. It's like, well, Nellie Bowles, who interviewed me for the New York Times, now part of the Free Press, she admitted that. She said that her job at the New York Times, like the job of many of the reporters, was to find someone, demolish their reputation by any means necessary, and elevate their status in consequence.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a terrible job.
Brutal.
So isn't it terrifying that's the old gray lady? That's the most trusted and respected source of news, and that their intent was just to destroy?
Yeah, it
wasn't
something.
The news. It wasn't real journalism, the nuanced various elements of what a human being is. The pros and cons, the goods, the bads, the ugly, the battle that they have. Not that.
Nope.
No. Not an accurate assessment, not an objective analysis of the person.
Yep.
Just
pursuit of status.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
the
part of that.
danger is that people know that now, and people know who's doing that now, and then they go after them. And you see that now.
Yep.
And journalists say, oh, it's attack on journalism.
Yeah,
like,
right.
no, you're not doing journalism. You're doing hit pieces. And you're doing it under the guise of journalism. But it's not journalism. It's kind of evil.
Yeah.
It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, kind of.
I've seen quite a bit of it where I'm like, especially with people that I know the actual story and what was really going on behind the scenes. I was like, this is maddening. This is wild.
Well, we started to learn after this had happened 2 or 3 times, like there's a kind of a process, because you're exposed to that, and then there's an intermediary period where it looks like it might succeed. And that's very stressful.
Right.
That's usually when people come out with their apologies.
Right.
Because they're just terrified. They're going to lose. Well, I did lose my job, and I lost my clinical practice.
Right.
Right. So, like, the costs are real.
So your situation in Canada was that they wanted you to sign up for re-education.
Oh, no. That's already, that's the plan.
Right.
I couldn't sign up. They said already that I have to do that.
Right.
But we have an appeal in at the moment that's blocking it.
And this is all just